Another night where Kyshawn George looks like he's an emerging star for the Washington Wizards, but will Trae Young get in the way of that? We break it all down today on Locked On Wizards.
You are Locked On Wizards, your daily Washington Wizards podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
DC family, you are locked on to the Washington Wizards, where you're part of our family. We thank you for making Locked On Wizards your first listen every single day. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. And today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Before tip-off, check the FanDuel app and see what's dropping during NBA Happy Hour every Friday from 6 to 7:30 p.m. Eastern Time, alongside the DC sports content creating savant Abdullah Ayubi. I'm Ben Strober, and I cover the Washington Wizards for Roundtable IO. AB, another super competitive, gutsy performance by the Washington Wizards. Out west, they fall to the Nuggets 121 to 115. Another really good competitive tank loss, though.
Yeah, I think what the NBA should do is just schedule the Wizards and Nuggets 82 times a season, Ben, because it's always absolute cinema, even without Nikola Jokic playing.
Dude, that game was ridiculous, especially in the fourth quarter. Jamal Murray dropped 42 in the game. Tim Hardaway Jr. had 30 himself. Those guys were making some ridiculous shots down the stretch that I thought Washington actually defended pretty well in this game. But the star of the show for me, Kyshawn George, who put up 29 points, 5 rebounds, 7 assists, and 3 blocks, made 5 threes. He became the first Wizard to do that ever, according to Wizards PR, so shout out to them for that stat right there. It's another one of those nights where you just see it with Kyshawn George, why so many guys are so high on the type of player he can become because of his two-way ability, AB. And it just, watching that fourth quarter of the game, seeing the ability he showed to beat his man off the dribble, to take the ball from the top of the key, use his shoulder to create separation and get downhill and get to the rim and finish, I was really impressed by it. It was another one of those nights where I say, this guy has real all-star potential. And that's why in today's episode we talk about his all-star potential, but then later on in the second segment, will Trae Young actually change the trajectory that we see for Kyshawn George? I think it's a legitimate question. Then we'll preview Wizards and Clippers for tomorrow's game on MLK Day in that third and final segment. But, man, how about Kyshawn George last night, AB?
I mean, Ben, you can't say enough nice things about this guy. And it's funny that we're talking about Kyshawn right now. I saw Knicks Reddit. Ben, Knicks fans are pressed that they drafted this kid and just let him go to Washington. It's just, this kid, I mean, at his size, and he's only going to get stronger, taller, 29 points, 5 rebounds, 7 assists, 1 steal, 3 blocks. Even on some nights where he can't score the ball, he's going to contribute in some different facets of the game. And it's amazing. This kid was the last draft pick of that top 3 draft class in 2024 with Sar and Bub. And I mean, when he has a point guard like Trae Young, the pick and rolls, the pick and pops, and it's funny because last year he hit that clutch shot against the Nuggets. So something about Kyshawn versus the Nuggets, he loves it, and I think this is the Kyshawn that we're gonna see for years to come. I'm hoping that the turnovers, I think he only had, what was it, 1 turnover, so 4 personal fouls. But I'm at the point, Ben, where, and we've been saying it for a while, where if he's playing defense like that, if he's getting 4 to 5 fouls a game, it is a little concerning. But at the end of the day, he's going out there and showing you that he can play aggressive defense, and that's what we've been begging for as Wizards fans. Either you go that you're showing that you're trying, or you're going to let up 130 points, and Kyshawn is your anchor. And I'm excited, Ben. Like, we were talking about it going into the season. I still go back to that video that we made when he hit that game winner in scrimmage and talking about the confidence and how this kid is going to make his mark in year 2. And it's only year 2, Ben. I mean, guys like him and getting drafted that late in the first round, there's not many of them. And it's the versatility. Again, Will Dawkins hitting on all 3 draft picks in 2024 in a weak draft class. You got to give him flowers, man.
I think, yeah, especially with how Kyshawn has developed here in year number 2. I'll give you the numbers that would indicate why he's a rising star, in my opinion, but the numbers don't tell the whole story for me, but I'll give you the numbers real quick. From last year to this year, his points per game is doubled. He's up to nearly 16 per game at 15.5. He was 8.7 last year. He's making on average 3 more field goals per game than he did last year. Field goal percentage is up 9%. His three-point percentage is up to 40% as opposed to 32 last year. Remember, that was the biggest sell that we got for him coming out of Miami, was that he was a three-point shooter that got it done consistently. Didn't see as much of that early on in his rookie season, but he's really looked like a fantastic three-point shooter here in year number 2. 5 of them on 8 attempts last night. That's wonderful efficiency from him. He's getting to the line a little bit more than he was last year, and the playmaking is still standing out for me. Last night, a really, really solid performance playmaking the basketball with 7 assists to 1 turnover. Those are the numbers you like to see. And now, obviously, turnovers have been a bit of an issue for him this season because he's been asked to do so much this year. And if you just look year to year in the splits in terms of his usage is up from 15% last year to 21.1 according to NBA.com this year. So that's a pretty significant change of how much he's had the basketball in his hands because of all the attrition they've had at point guard this year, kind of fluctuating, trying different things. George has stepped up in a big way, and I think overall that's made him a better basketball player. Although I don't think like long-term he's your team's point guard. That's not really the end-all, be-all situation that you're looking for in Kyshawn George, but him being thrown into that role and just learning how to create for himself, learning how to create for others, and showcase that confidence, because we don't get that confidence every single night for Kyshawn George, but we need to see him play the way he did last night on a consistent basis, because that's really the only thing that's held him back. Is some nights he's a little bit more reserved. You don't see him trying the step back shot. You don't see him taking it all the way to the rim, fearing nobody on every single night. Once he gets to that point, which I think he will, he's going to be a really, really hard player to stop, and he's going to be part of a foundation here in DC that has some really talented scorers and just guys that play on both ends of the basketball. The eye test for me is what's more important. Those numbers would indicate he's on the rise right now like he is, but just from watching the guy play from last year to this year, it seems like almost a night and day difference to me, AB.
Yeah, and as high as I am on Alex Sarr, I think Keyshawn is just right there. And it's nights where we're going to talk about Sarr more than George. And last night it was more George than Sarr. And I was talking to Henry, shout out to him, a very nice guy, at the Wizards game. He talked about how if next year you land a Bonzo or Boozer, what do you do with Keyshawn or Bilal when it comes to starting lineup? And I think, Ben, it's unanimously, we can all agree that Keyshawn deserves to start for the foreseeable future every single freaking game because of the offensive versatility. Defensively, Bilal and Keyshawn, maybe you can make an argument that Bilal is a better defender, but he still gives you those defensive intensity minutes. Offensively, Keyshawn, Ben, there's going to be games where he's going to be dropping 40 points soon. If it's not this season, it's going to be next season. When he is confident, he is going. That mid-range contact, one dribble, making that separation, it's just so beautiful. And the growth that we've seen, it was last season where we didn't see much of him until game 25, 30, where we're like, oh, let's play Keyshawn, because there was times where I was saying that maybe you put him on the Capital City Go-Go. From that point till now, I mean, that is amazing development, and maybe next year if he takes that huge leap, the most improved player, it's going to be tough because, again, there's really good, a lot of good players in the league. But, man, a lot of people don't talk about the Wizards, and Kyshawn George is probably going to be that one guy that NBA fans are eyeing on, saying, oh, wow, he's building something in D.C.
I think so. And I got some more numbers here from Cleaning the Glass, a great site that gives you a lot of the percentiles comparing how players are performing compared to their peers. Kyshawn George is in the 97th percentile in assist percentage, 22.8%, which means that's the number percentage of his teammates' made shots that he assisted on. So the fact that he's had the basketball in his hands at like a 7% usage rate more in year number 2 here, it's made him that much better as a distributor. And then you look at the assist to usage rate, it's at the 88th percentile, which is just under 1 right now. So when he has the ball in his hands, he is very, very effective. And that's why we're going to have this conversation in the second segment about Trae Young and how that might impact it. And I'll give you the details and all the reasoning I have for my answer to that question, but it is going to be very interesting to see how that offensive dynamic changes a little bit, because Kyshawn has become a little bit more ball heavy than we expected from him in this second season. But I think he's still going to be able to do a lot of great things with Young on the floor because of the playmaking ability that Young possesses and other things. But I just wanted to get your thoughts on Kyshawn just in terms of his ability to create for others so far this year, AB.
Did you see it, Ben? He was on NBA TV, and he talked about how he should be a rising star without a doubt. I mean,
yeah, I don't know how he wouldn't.
The kid is just 22 years old, and the sky's the limit. The international experience that he had this past summer, I mean, there's a possibility, Ben, where by the end of this season, you could say this kid's the best player on the roster. We're probably going to go back and forth between him and Alex Sarr, and then eventually Trae Young comes back. Next season, expectations are high for me, Ben. Once you land that top 4 pick, which, crossing our fingers, with the year 3 Keyshawn, Alex Sarr, a healthy Trae Young, Trey Johnson, there's got to be some form of expectations, and year 4 of a rebuild, it's going to be exciting, Ben.
100%. All right, when Trae Young does play for this Washington Wizards team, will that interfere with the development of Kyshawn George, who looks like an emerging star? Give you the answer to that next. Fridays already feel different during basketball season, and FanDuel is making them even better. Every Friday night before the games tip off, FanDuel gives fans a new way to kick off the weekend with NBA Happy Hour. NBA Happy Hour is your official pregame, a limited time window where special offers drop right inside the FanDuel app before the action starts. Fridays from 6 to 7:30 p.m. Eastern to become appointment viewing with NBA Happy Hour. Opening the FanDuel app during Happy Hour always brings something new, boosts, bonuses, and surprises. It's easy to check the weekly special before tip-off and make a move before the window closes. The timing is perfect, right before the games, right before the weekend starts. It adds a little extra energy to Friday night basketball without overthinking it. So before tip-off, check the FanDuel app and see what's dropping during NBA Happy Hour every Friday from 6 to 7:30 p.m. Eastern Time. A little basketball, a little action, and a whole lot of Friday energy. That's NBA Happy Hour only on FanDuel, the official sportsbook partner of the NBA. Thank you for making Locked On Wizards your first listen of the day, and thank you for making Locked On the #1 sports podcast network. If you haven't already, go check out the new Everydayer Club. In your own words, this is the best way to do it. It's access to ad-free audio feed for Locked On Wizards, compatible with Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and every other major podcast app. You get access to the invite member-only Discord, which includes a group chat for just listeners of this show. If you like hanging out in the Discord like you guys like hanging out in the chat after the game, you can do it 24/7 in the Discord. Go to LockedOnWizards.supercast.com or tap the link in the show notes to learn more about this. Alrighty, AB, Trae Young, when he eventually does play for this Washington Wizards team, and we're not expecting to hear anything about it until after the All-Star break, which is when they announce they'll reevaluate. Trae Young still out with the quad injury, MCL sprain that was nagging his time in Atlanta. When he is on the floor, it becomes a question because of how ball dominant he is, how that will affect a player like Kyshawn George. Because I've seen a lot of discourse out there saying that Kyshawn George is the biggest loser of this Washington Wizards trade to get Trae Young. And I disagree, actually, because I think George has gotten so much better at the sport and playing at this level in the NBA because of the amount of the amount of times he's had the basketball in his hands as of recent and how ball dominant he's had to play this year. But I think when you lessen the load for him a little bit, when you have your lead guard on the floor in Trae Young out there, I think that's going to allow him to unlock a little bit more ability because he's not going to have to worry about doing as much every single night. I think he'll still be confident. I think he'll still get the amount of shot attempts that you want to see from me at 20 last night. Maybe he doesn't get 20 shots every single night, but if you see him getting like 13 to 17 shots per night with Young creating for him, I still think George will have serious star potential in this league with that lead guard on the floor in Young.
Yeah, on NBA TV, he also mentioned how playing alongside Trae Young is going to excel a lot of the young guys' game, including him. And I think the ability that he's versatile is huge. I mean, in Miami, he was basically a spot-up shooter. And like you mentioned, I think 13 to 15 shots, I like it. 20 shots, a little of a stretch. And Trae Young, I mean, Ben, last season he led in assists per game. He makes his teammates better. I don't know. The notion that he's not a team player, he can't play winning basketball, is just malarkey in my opinion. And I think Kyshawn not playing on ball, it allows him to put more energy and effort on the defensive side of the ball as well. And offensively, the cuts to the basket, him and Bilal, I think are going to feed. I know we talk about lobs, but I think Kyshawn can also be a lob threat, how tall and athletic he is. I'm excited because we haven't seen that ability for him to play alongside a pure point guard, a guy that can get him the ball. And it's going to be up from here because the ability to do this at such a young age, like you see the glimpses and doubling up his points per game. I honestly don't know what his ceiling can be. I think he could be an all-star. There was questions about that when I saw some performances after the Mavericks game, because when we saw that Mavericks game, game 2 this season, it was like, okay, teams are going to read the scouting report, understand what Keyshawn's doing. And then he struggled for a little bit, but the Sacramento game recently, this Denver game, he shows why he can be a really good player in this league. And it's going to be exciting because Wizards fans, a lot of people love Sar, a lot of people love Bub, and Keyshawn gets love as well. But it's just the fact that you landed this guy so low in the draft that it's just how did he fall that far? And when we mentioned it with Nathan, he talked about how just he wasn't known to be a guy that was versatile in Miami. And I want to ask you this, Ben, because I always talk about Coach Brian Keefe, and a lot of people have a negative notion about Coach Keefe, but how much of his development do you predicate towards Brian Keefe? Because a lot of people want to give him blame. You're not winning a lot, but Coach Keefe is doing something right for Keyshawn to have this big jump, right?
I think Keefe is very hands-on, a lot more than other coaches in the NBA. And from conversations I've had with people in the building, they would indicate that's a big reason why a lot of the players are developing this way. And I know I spoke to Drew Gooden about this, and he said that Keefe is so heavily involved in the day-to-day life of these players. It's very different from like the experience that he had when Randy Whitman was his coach here in D.C. So that's a big thing to me, because the reason you brought Keefe in, like he was your initially here as a player development guy that came over with, the new regime from OKC. So when you factor that into the equation and you make him the head coach, you're saying, okay, we're asking you to lead this team that's not supposed to win a lot of games. In fact, it's welcomed that the results are pretty ugly on a lot of nights. Last night was definitely not an ugly result for this team. If you're a Wizards fan that is committed to the tank bit like most people are, that was the dream scenario night for you. Competitive against one of the best teams in the NBA, and you got a star-level performance from one of your young players in your number 2 of Kyshawn George. So Keefe, I think, has done a really nice job in terms of player development. In terms of what Keefe is really being asked to do as the head coach, this was the goal. They wanted to see their players develop. They didn't really care necessarily about the wins and losses. I know they had the run where they won 7 of their 12 games that they played in a couple weeks back. But the results of the scoreboard were not predicated essentially on how successful the season is for them. The fact that they're seeing meaningful contributions and developments from a lot of these players, you do have to give Keefe a good amount of credit. And I bet the front office is fairly happy with the way players had developed. So I think, a lot of it will be their own doing, of course, putting in the work. Like they said, Kyshawn George would be in the facility almost every single day from May through September, whatever it is, where they were just in the gym outside of playing in the AmeriCup where he looked really good. So a lot of that stuff is obviously the players working tirelessly to get better. But Keefe is right there like every step of the way with these guys. So I think you need to give him credit for the development of a lot of these players.
And I know wins and losses aren't much value as of right now for the Wiz, but shout out to Bijan Todd from Monumental. He said and tweeted, exactly halfway through the season, the Wizards are 10-31. Last year at this point, they were 6-35. The year prior, they were 7-34. That's progress, Ben. You're doing a good job of making sure that you're keeping that pick, but also you have more wins than the prior season at some point.
Yeah, it's a slight progress, and you're not going to see that progress every single night because it's not going to be linear, as we've said multiple times throughout this process. But that's just the reality of being a rebuilding team, and hopefully next year, with Trae Young on the floor, most likely in that situation, you're going to be expected to make a jump, and then you make a move, obviously, in free agency, maybe get another big if you don't get one at some point in this upcoming draft class, barring lottery luck, whatever happens with that, because the Wizards will keep their pick. I think everybody finally has calmed down and chilled out about that. There was no need to ever worry about it. But I want to go back to the conversation here actually about Trae Young and what his role will look like and how that affects Kyshawn George. Just because if you look at the numbers in terms of his usage, his career high usage rate was 39% back in 2021, so a year removed from when they went to the Eastern Conference Finals. Since then, it's lowered every single year. Went to 37, went to 34.6, then to 34.5, so not much of a change there. This year, it's a pretty small sample size, 32.1% through the 10 games played, so that's a big reason why. But we know that from Brad Rowland of Locked On Hawks, who told us that Trae Young had actually evolved within that offense to have the ball in his hands a little bit less, and he was receiving of that change that Atlanta ended up making to their offense. Maybe we see something similar here in DC. Now, do I expect him to be like a 25% usage rate player? No, absolutely. That's not why you bring him here. You bring him here to have the ball in his hands a lot, to make plays for others. But maybe it's not going to be as high as people think. Maybe if you see it around like 31 to 32 like it is right now, that actually could be pretty sustainable for other players like George who can thrive with the basketball in their hands to make plays for themselves. Maybe Bub Carrington also will get some opportunities with the basketball in his hands to continue his development as a playmaker. I don't think Washington would make this move knowing that Young is going to have the ball at a 40% or just under that usage rate. I don't think that would be in their plans. I don't think they think he's that kind of player. I think they believe in him to be a very high-level player still in terms of what he is as a playmaker, but I don't think they're going to have him be this like number one ball dominant, needs the basketball 24/7, go out there and get you a bucket every single play. I don't think that's the plan here. So I think George is going to mesh just fine with Young.
Yeah, 100%. I couldn't have said it any better, Ben. Why would you trade for a guy knowing that it might hurt your development of your young core? It just doesn't make any sense. I want to ask you, though, Ben, before we go to break, Kyshawn George, his versatility, his upside, when's the last time we've had a young prospect like that in DC, Ben? I really can't think of anybody.
With this level of versatility on both ends of the floor.
Think about the wings that we've had. Trevor Ariza, Paul Pierce, Otto Porter Jr. God bless Otto Porter, but this guy is different.
I'm trying to think right now in my head, like, who is the last player we could say that had this level of ability on both ends of the floor? We've drafted so many one-way players over the years, or maybe like even 0.5-way players from a sense, because they couldn't even really do much on one end of the floor. But
I like that.
That's beside the point. Yeah, like Kyshawn is a special breed of player that they haven't had in a long time, and because he's so good on both ends of the floor, and he has this ability to score the basketball the way he does, he is absolutely going to be an all-star at some point in this league, one way or another, and I think Young is going to help him out.
It's going to be fun, guys. Year 3, Kyshawn George, I can't wait.
All right, Wizards and Clippers tomorrow on MLK Day, 3 p.m. tip from Capital One Arena. We will be there for it. Let's preview that game when we come back. During basketball season, there's nothing like being in the building. The energy, the crowd, that first big run that gets everyone on their feet. Fans want to be there for those moments, not stuck refreshing screens or guessing what tickets are really going to cost. That's where GameTime comes in. The GameTime app gives fans the advantage back, making it incredibly easy to score amazing tickets. Fast, simple, and without the guesswork. Browsing the GameTime app is straightforward and intuitive. Finding tickets takes just a few taps. Seeing the view from your seat before buying makes choosing tickets easy and confident. Prices include fees up front, so the total is clear from the start. Features like zone deals help unlock great seats at even better value. Whether it's an NBA game or another live event, everything is right there in one place. Take the guesswork out of buying NBA tickets with GameTime. Download the GameTime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off. Swipe, tap, ticket, go with GameTime. Wizards and Clippers tomorrow. Second time these teams will play in a 5-day span. Is that right? No, like 4-day span. So it's just weird that they play the same team twice out west, the only 2 times you play them all season in a 4-day span. But here we are. The Wizards are back home after that West Coast trip, so good to have the boys back home at Capital One Arena. Clippers have been hot, man. They've been one of the hottest teams in the NBA right now, and it's crazy that they're still 18-23 because they were in such a bad spot earlier with only 5 or 6 wins. Quietly, though, they've won, I think, 11 of their last 14 games or something like that. They're starting to materialize into what you'd expect the team to be. You have James Harden and Kawhi Leonard, who's actually out right now with a knee injury, so that's interesting to note there. But there's way more talent on this Clippers team than was showing for a lot of the first part of the regular season. The Wizards will have to find a way to contain Harden this time.
Yeah, it's funny, Ben. I swear growing up, every time we played on MLK Day, we were playing against the Portland Trail Blazers. But now you're playing against the Clippers with no Kawhi Leonard, like you mentioned. James Harden, the beard in the district, that's going to be exciting. I know he's going to have some type of crowd. Jordan Miller, a guy who plays for the Clippers, is from Loudoun Valley. I'm a big fan of him.
So, want to know something?
Go ahead.
He's like Mike Marr's best friend.
Really? That's awesome. They're awesome.
Super close. So Mike Marr will probably be at that game tomorrow if I had to guess.
Because they graduated in the same class?
Yeah.
That's awesome. Dude, Jordan Miller, because he went to Mason first and transferred to Miami. I think he's probably good friends with Keyshawn, I'm assuming, right?
I would imagine.
Because they did probably play in Miami together. But this Clippers team, you have to find a way to limit James Harden. I want to see Keyshawn on him because I'm assuming Bilal is going to be out. There's no update on Bilal, right, Ben?
I think he's going to be out. Let me check if the official injury report is out, but you can go on from there.
Yeah, and I think the last game that you played against LA, it was competitive. I think if you find a way to Keyshawn being aggressive again, Bub Carrington, his playmaking, Trey Johnson, right now he's been playing better as of recently. Only had 4 points against the Nuggets, so a little underwhelming. But, I mean, Trey, we saw it in Sacramento, 18 points off no free throws. That's ethical basketball right there. And you're going to be undermanned because no Ken Whitmore, no Trae Young. We're assuming Bilal doesn't play. And no TV. Or maybe he might be back. But the Clippers also have Zubac, who's a good player when it comes to being a beast in the paint, averages 15 and 11. So find a way to limit him. John Collins is a very high flyer, and Nicholas Batum, I mean, he's a wizard killer from years past. So if you find a way on MLK Day to be competitive, this Clippers team is out there to win. They start off the year really, really slow. They don't even have their first round pick, so they're like the Pelicans. They have no incentive to lose. I think you can come out victorious, and it's all a lot without some of these key guys playing. You want to see Trae, Alex, and Keyshawn go out there and ball out.
Yeah, just keep it competitive the way you did last night against Denver. Those are the type of losses that you've been begging to see all season long. And I think Wizards fans genuinely were excited about last night because you got a big-time performance out of Kyshawn George, because you kept it close with a powerhouse team out west like Denver, and you ended up losing the game. So now you are tied for the worst record in the NBA right now, which is a very positive thing. Halfway through the season, the Wizards are pretty much on schedule of where they want to be. They're technically a game and a half back of the worst overall record, which belongs to New Orleans right now because they have 34 losses on the season. But you all have 10 wins. New Orleans has played more games at this point. Indiana has played more games. So there's time for Washington to catch up from that realm. Let's see here. And you got yourself a 3-game cushion from even being in 5th. So you're building that cushion for finishing in the bottom 4, which is obviously the most important part for a lot of Wizards fans out there. And most people want to get to that worst record spot because the worst you could fall to is 5 in the draft. So it's going to be very interesting to see how the second half of the year shapes up. Trade deadline a couple of weeks away. Do we see Chris Middleton go somewhere? Do we see him bought out? Does Marvin Bagley end up getting traded? It's going to be fascinating to see how Washington navigates this deadline. You already made your blockbuster move, so we're not going to be wowed, I don't think, by anything, but you never know.
Yeah, I just noticed. I had to scroll all the way down, but Bradley Beal is also on the Clippers. He will be out with injury in classic fashion, so that should be fun to see him on the bench.
He's out for the year.
Oh yeah, the hip injury. Yeah, I'm so out of date with Brad, Ben. It's insane to think about how at one point the guy was averaging 30 points per game not too long ago, and now he's out for the whole year due to hip injury.
Yeah, let's see how many games he even played before he was, because he's been out for quite some time. Let's see if I can find the last game he played was on October 24th against his former team, the Phoenix Suns, and he scored 6 points. And
so he got hurt off. He got hurt off that game.
Yeah. So wow, he had really just not a good run with the Clippers, to say the least. He played in 4 games, it looks like. No, he played in 3.
But the contract is so cheap too, right?
Or actually, no, he played in more than that. He didn't get the left hip fracture until November 8th was actually his last game. I was looking at the wrong thing because he had right knee soreness at one point. I think he gets signed for $11 million, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
Yeah, he just the best performance he had was a 12-point game. He did that 3 times. Those were his 3 best performances of the year. So not very good for Beal.
I saw him chatting it up with Trae before the game last time they played in LA. So, yeah, Bradley Beal back in DC, and that's a headline, right? Even though he's not playing.
Yeah, I guess we'll see him out there. So that'll be very, very interesting to see. All right, everyone, that's gonna do it for today's episode of Locked On Wizards. Tomorrow, Wizards and Clippers from Capital One Arena. We'll have the post-game show for you, as always, live in DC. You'll have the opportunity to let it all out. Be sure to check out the Everydayer Club. Link in our show notes, LockedOnWizards.supercast.com if you're listening still at this point. For my co-host, Abdullah Youbi, I'm Ben Strober. Talk to you later, DC family.